Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. All right, thanks for killing the switch on that thing. Wow, it's so quiet. Hey, guys, thank you for coming to this. And I'm sorry it's so goddamn hot in here, but I think we'll do okay. I promise we'll make it quick. There's wine, so that makes up for it a little bit. Actually, listen, with Bulletproof and Dry Farm Wines being here to pass out their stuff, please give them a round of applause for coming here. All right? The things that they are hawking is the stuff that people on a ketogenic diet can actually live with, and it's kind of hard to try to figure out what to drink. Now, when I'm on my diet, I'm typically not drinking wine. It'll knock me out of ketosis. But I am tonight. All right. So I haven't done a peak performance event in a while, and I'm really happy to be back up here. And I'm glad that you guys are all here to come celebrate and also learn about what we're going to talk about, which is fat. Lots of fat. All right. So, show of hands. Who here, right now, is ketotic? Oh my God. Actually, that's a really good percentage of you. And I was wondering whether people would be like, ketotic? I'm not supposed to be ketotic. I am too. Although I wasn't over the weekend. But I've gotten to a point in my life where I can easily cycle back into it. Now, we're going to hear from a guy who does not believe in cheat days. That's okay. He's hardcore, this motherfucker. For me, it provides a sense of normalcy in my life when I can, and also sanity, when I can plan out the types of foods that I'm going to have later on down the road, like 2 weeks from now, and then as long as I can sort of mentally put that bag of cookies in my shopping cart and know that I have it, that somehow scratches that itch of being able to figure out what we need to eat when you're on a ketogenic diet. Now, question is, why is it that anyone would even want to be on a stupid diet where you're eating 80% fat? I mean, that's like insane, right? Doctors have said for like decades that that's not healthy at all. We're going to find out today that actually it's not really true. There's a lot of health benefits to being on a keto diet. And it's not just about health, but it's about performance and enhancement. What I found prior to deciding to be on a keto diet for myself was that I was really lethargic, sluggish, often after eating a meal. And I didn't really understand what was going on. For myself, I went to a nutritionist and a naturopath who ended up telling me, or giving me a blood test, to find out that I have reactive hypoglycemia. And what that means is I have the ability to really, really metabolize carbs really well to the point where my blood sugar drops right afterward, and I feel bad. The ironic part about it is that the doctor told me that I had reactive hypoglycemia, but didn't exactly give me a remedy for it. So I had to go find, all right, what do I need to do in order to fix myself? So the ketogenic diet was something that was swimming around in my mind. People were talking about it, and I wanted to find out how I could get on this diet for myself. And now, because of that health diagnosis, it gave me the impetus to try. So I went on the diet, and I felt like shit at first, really, really bad, because my body was not really used to eating in this particular way. This was November of 2015, and the first several days, I went through something called, people call it the keto flu, and what it is, it's an emptying of glucose from your body and a transition period into becoming what's called fat adapted. And Todd is going to be telling you more about that. But during that period, it was pretty awful, and I didn't feel very good. And I stopped for like 2 weeks. But then I'm like, I got to man up. Let me try this again. So I did, and I actually stuck with it. I got over the hump, and then I started to feel this sense of clarity that I really hadn't felt before, because I was always eating what was wrong for my body. And everyone seems to report this, that when they're on a keto diet, their brain is sharper. You also have people who are able to have better endurance physically. You have inflammation that goes away. It's kind of miraculous when you eliminate a lot of carbs from your diet and substitute with fat. So I'm not going to talk up here much more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call Todd to the stage. Now this guy is awesome. Todd White is the founder of Dry Farm Wines. He has been working with wines for a very long time to find which ones are going to be healthiest for you. He is a huge biohacker himself. He's been ketogenic for years, and he has some really interesting practices that I think we'll all be able to utilize. Todd, let me call you to the stage, man. Come on up.
Thank you. I'm going to get everybody to set their glass down before we get started on your chair, or your phone, computer, or journal, whatever you're holding, because we're going to stand up for a moment. All right? Can everybody stand? First thing I want you to do, because all of you have been sitting at desks probably most of the day, is to reach up as high as you can and look to the ceiling. And imagine touching the ceiling and just stretching your spine out. Just holding that for a moment. Now, follow me on this. We're going to do a little jumping to get our lymph nodes activated. All right. Now I feel better. Awesome, thank you. I came here tonight to make you wealthy. I'm a biohacker because I believe deeply in the concept of wealth. Without wellness, nothing else really matters. And so we practice a very deep commitment. Everyone on my staff is ketogenic. Everyone does intermittent fasting, and we all drink a lot of healthy, low-alcohol wines, copious amounts. Because our responsibility is to test these wines before we bring them to you. So I want to talk tonight about wealth and introduce a whole bunch of concepts. I'm going to talk a little bit about biohacking, but mainly going to be focused on the ketogenic diet. I've been in ketosis for over 3 years. I come out probably 4 or 5 times a year for maybe 8 or 10 or 12 hours, maybe as much as a day. This typically I come out because I've had a 2 a.m. incident. This is usually in a hotel room. I travel a lot from our work. And I've usually been overserved these low alcohol wines, right? And that results in a Snickers bar, or my favorite go-to, which is the gummy bear, right? And so this happens, and this will take me out of ketosis for a few hours. But because I'm fat adaptive and because I've been in ketotic for so long, I recover within 6 or 8 hours, even if I get kicked out. And that's the real benefit of being fat adaptive, metabolically adapted to burning fat as your primary energy source. That takes 45 to 60 days to reach fat adaptation, and I'm going to talk about that tonight, and why it's so important if you want to experiment with the ketogenic diet, why it's so important that you strive to reach a metabolic state of burning fat. What you're doing is retraining your body and retraining your mind to demand ketones as its primary energy source. That's when you become metabolically adjusted. Because your body now today, for most of you, excepting my staff and one of my vendors here who's ketogenic, who came over to see me talk, most of you are burning glucose as your primary fuel source and have been burning glucose as your primary fuel source your whole life. So your body is metabolically adjusted to doing that. Let's see if we can get this to work. Let's see. George, you may have to work this for me, or at least get it started, and we'll see if it's. Or Mark, you can do it. You know my gig. All right, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about who I am real quickly, just so you understand how fucking fanatical I am, right? And that I'm legit. So I'm the founder of Dry Farm Wines, which you're drinking tonight. The company's a little more than a year old. We grew 100x last year. We had a phenomenal success, primarily being endorsed by virtually every health leader in the United States. Some of my staff is here tonight, and thank you for pouring all that wine, and they're also going to pour you more wine. But one thing is for certain, we will not run out of wine tonight. We guarantee. I'm also the founder of KetoWell, which is our soon-to-launch ketogenic product and food company. I'm an expert on drinking. I have 50 years of experience. So I've been drinking for nearly 50 years. I've been self-employed since 17, founded 8 companies, 6 were successful, 1 was a minor failure, and my last business before this was the darkest, deepest, nastiest failure of my life that actually caused my awakening, and we'll talk about meditation shortly. I'm a biohacker, ketogenic for 3 years, sugar-free for about 2.5 or 3 years, low-carb for more than 15 years. I am a deeply dedicated to daily practice of meditation, and I would tell you I think it's the single most important thing an adult can do. Daily Wim Hof breathing. Has anybody done Wim Hof in here or no Wim Hof? Shit, this is a biohacking crowd. Daily cold thermogenesis. Daily gratefulness therapy. I'll tell you about that in a bit. Spreading love everywhere I go, and I love you. I hope you can feel that from my heart. And I'm a fitness enthusiast. You're going to have to run this slideshow.
Yeah.
What we do, we're in the taste business. And today our primary focus around taste is the ketogenic diet and wine. So we spend our entire life dedicated to being experts at taste and bringing better taste to our customers. On the ketogenic diet, and I'm going to show you this in a moment, on the ketogenic diet, people talk about how difficult it is. And I'm going to demonstrate to you here with a whole bunch of food porn, which we're going to slap through really, really quick when we get to it. It's not now. It's going to be in a slide or two. But when we get to it, we're going to go through the food porn pretty quickly because I want to demonstrate to you, I want to show you how we eat, right? Because it's real, because people are like, well, how do I do this? And I'm going to tell you how you do it. But I want to show you how we eat because it's amazingly delicious, right? It's just like fat is what brings flavor to food. Right? So we eat a lot of olive oil, tremendous amount of grass-fed butter. I'm going to show you all that. Before we get into that, I want to tell you just real quickly about natural wines. Just because people have the same questions, I want to be able to answer those for you real quickly. A natural wine is exactly what it says. It's a 100% naturally made product, nothing added, nothing taken away. There's nothing in the bottle but fermented grape juice. That is not true for most wines that you drink. There's a couple 100,000 winemakers in the world. Less than 500 of them make these wines, and they're primarily in Europe. Let me tell you what's really going on in the wines that you are drinking. In the United States, there are 76 additives approved by the FDA for the use in winemaking. Of those 76, 38 include the acronym GRAS, which stands for Generally Regarded as Safe. Now, you don't know about these 76 additives because your government, in coordination with the wine industry, has kept contents labeling off of wine. Wine is the only major food group without a contents label on it. Now, I'd submit to you, if it were only fermented grape juice, why would they care if there was a contents label on it? Because they don't want you to know what's really in it. Because if you knew what was really in it, you wouldn't drink it. And if it had a contents label, it would look like all other processed foods. It would have a whole bunch of chemical names that you couldn't pronounce and didn't know what they were, right? So that's the reason there's not a contents label on there. And the wine industry has fought aggressively to keep it off. In addition to that, winemaking styles, starting in the United States, are driven to really higher sugar content, higher alcohol, and there are a whole lot, and very little organic or biodynamic farming in the United States. This is just a pocket of a handful of folks. But so these winemaking styles are creating this kind of heavy, indulgent, big wines that make you feel bad. which you won't have that experience. Would invite you to have a nice dose of our wine to see if what I'm telling you is true. You won't have a hangover in the morning. The other thing is all of our wines are low in alcohol, so we don't sell any wine over 12.5%. Most of the wines I drink are between 10.5% and 11.5% wine. Commercial wines are 14 to 16.5%, but there's one other thing about the government and the wine industry. The alcohol stated on the bottle is by law not required to be accurate, right? So, and even for what's stated, there's no enforcement. So we do independent lab testing on all of our wines. I'm not here to sell wine. I just wanted you to understand what makes a natural wine and what makes these wines so unusual. So anyway, moving along, how we became the Keto Wine Company. Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, the leading ketogenic scientist in the world, did a public endorsement on Facebook of our wines last year. I'm speaking at a conference tomorrow with him. He's a terrific guy, and I had a great pleasure of seeing him a few times a year. But anyway, he did blood testing and posted this out on Facebook, and the keto world went wild. So that's kind of how we became the ketogenic wine. Boom. I wanted to talk about this for just a second. I forgot to add this slide. I had to add it after I got here. What's happening in America with our processed food diet and our disconnect with real food and our association with processed food, and particularly with highly glycemic processed food, is we've had an explosion in obesity, right? So you can see, and just as far back as 1985, and we were, barely registering, and this is not that long ago, up until 2014, which is when the CDC last issued this chart. So it's pretty astounding what's happened. And this is largely high sugar diet, high glycemic foods, which are generating a high blood glucose, which causes your pancreas to flood your blood with insulin to lower your blood glucose. And that insulin does two things. It stores glucose in your muscles, a little bit in your liver, a little bit in your brain. And to balance, it converts to fat for storage, right? And that's why that we have this obesity problem. Next slide. I want to talk to you. This is a perfect ketogenic dish, right? I actually ate this in London last year and photographed it at that time. This was about a year ago. I was eating lunch. I don't eat lunch anymore, but this is a perfect fat-filled, moderate protein dish that I think really beautifully represents what the ketogenic diet looks like. Does it look tasty? Yeah, it's tasty. That's a bunch of butter. That's hollandaise and just salmon floating around in that. I think we're going to bust through these pretty quick. Yeah, so this I had at Chez Panisse over in Berkeley last year. Again, these are just great examples of what the ketogenic diet looks like. So moderate protein, high fat, very low carbohydrate. So all the carbohydrate you see on here is the green. So the beans, there's some spinach, some parsley, some chives. But all of that green doesn't even make up a couple of grams of carbohydrate, right? So when you're eating above ground vegetables and leafy greens, your carb count is super, super low. Like as an example, a cup of cooked broccoli is about 1 gram of carbohydrate, right? So on the ketogenic diet, I'm going to talk about this in a moment, classically, I eat less than 20 grams of carbs a day, but classic ketogenic diet is typically less than 50 grams per day. Average American probably eats between 350 and 500 grams a day, right? And so this is the reason that we've seen this explosion of health. I'm going to really bust through these quick because there's a bunch of them. This is artichoke swimming in fat, as you can see, fried artichokes and nuts. This is another beautiful example of ketogenic diet. Let's just kind of run through this. This is raw salmon with seaweed. You can see oil, scampi, swimming in butter, more fat. Eggs are like one of my favorite dishes. We're going to have to move faster through these. Tuna, you can see this oil. Go back for a second. Sorry about this. But you can see all of these dishes it didn't come from the kitchen this way. This is added oil that we're putting on it in the restaurant or at home. So this was a restaurant dish. And this is where we've added additional oil to bring the fat content up, right? You'll see the same thing here. This was back. This photograph is way back when I was occasionally eating breakfast. I now do 24-hour intermittent fasting. I'll eat once a day. I haven't eaten since last night, and I'll eat about 9 o'clock tonight for the first time today. Next, again, this is just more examples of this is what a ketogenic diet looks like. Is there anything wrong with this? Does this seem hard? All right, let's bust on through. This is, again, you can see in most of these pictures, you're going to see examples of fatty meats. This is a pancetta, so very fatty, and then you're going to see the addition of oil. So we're going to raise the fat content. My diet is about 75% fat, about 5% carbohydrate, and the balance is protein. Sardines is a favorite go-to. Sardines are not as bad as you think. Does anybody in here eat sardines? All right, well, shit. There's a lot of sardine eaters in here. This is a biohacking crowd. Sardines and the quality of the sardine really matters in terms of taste, right? So you want to experiment. Sardines are like wine. They're like butter. All butters taste different. All olive oils taste different. All wines taste different. All sardines taste different. So, I encourage you to kind of experiment around and find a manufacturer or purveyor that you like, because there are like hundreds of them, maybe thousands. We eat most commonly an online seafood company called Vital Choice Seafood is the go-to for us. They also have other canned fishes like canned salmon belly and other go-to kind of canned fishes, but I'll show you a photograph of that later. But then this is what we do with sardines, right? So this is now pancetta and hard-boiled egg and oil and probably some shallots and so you can see. So we've now taken this sardine and made it sexy, right, and delicious. And that's classic kind of what we're here to talk and teach you about. Is like it's a can of sardines, but we can really, if you'll flip, we can really start to add real texture and interest to something that was just a canned fish before. Moving through, same thing, bam, let's go. Avocado, go-to, let's go. This is one of my favorite dishes of all time, which is duck confit. So this is duck swimming in its own fat. It's amazing. We eat it all the time, and it's super fatty and delicious. This is another. So egg is also a go-to protein source for us. And you can see all that pork fat in there. This egg is swimming in butter. We love things that swim in fat. Again, more pork fat in egg. These are all dishes we did as a part of our ketogenic cookbook. This is, again, more fat in egg. Same thing, more fat. Here's one of my favorite. Let's go back there for a second, because this is one of my favorite dishes of all time that I picked up in Italy. So it's basically steamed broccoli and then sauteed with scrambled egg. Egg and greens are like such an amazing combination. So it's super easy and fast to do at home. This is asparagus and eggs. Bam. Let's just run through this. You can see what these are. Fat, more fat. Oh, go-to dish, right? Escargot, swimming in butter, right? Let's run through. Foie gras. So if you're in a restaurant, both of these are both restaurant dishes, and I'm going to talk about how to order in restaurants in a moment. So this is a restaurant dish. It's this crab with a Tabasco butter. Let's just bust through these. You guys can see what they are. But these are actual food shots of food that we either prepared or eat out. And I'm going to talk about ordering in restaurants in a moment. That's a big old nasty wheel of cheese. This is raw beef. As you can see, super fatty. Again, I think we're going to be wrapping up here. I think this is the last one. So you can see here, if you go back for just 1 second, you can see here again, this was a sashimi dish, but we've added all this extra oil to it, as you can see around it, to kind of bring it up into its fat status. Does it look pretty tasty? Yeah, so I love food porn. Hell yeah. All right. This is me pouring fat at a dinner we did last year at Paleo FX, just pouring olive oil on what you can see is an abundance of avocado. Next, This is another party we did on top of a mountain. Again, this is what the ketogenic lifestyle looks like, right? So, next slide. This is a butter poached salmon. This is what the ketogenic lifestyle looks like in your kitchen. Couple more. This is a ketogenic meal we did for our friends at Bulletproof, and be sure to say hello to Josh and Colin, who we work all over the country with, and they're great partners. We're also the official wine for Bulletproof Conference and I've done Dave Asprey's podcast, and he endorses us. This was a dinner that we did. There's a salmon back there in the back, but it's also covered. It was poached in butter, but it's also covered in fatty hollandaise sauce. Hollandaise is just butter and egg yolk, and a little bit of lemon juice. So you can see on these avocados here, there's so much olive oil in them that they're just kind of swimming in that boat. So anyway, this is again a raw squash that has been covered in oil and some salt and pepper and kind of herbs. But moving past, this is another dish from the same dinner. This is bok choice, sauteed in fat. You can see the oil all over it. But and this was the outcome of the dinner with the Bulletproof team that we went down to do a party with. These are some appetizer choices, just showing that, you know, charcuterie is super easy. In fact, I recommend the fatted calf in Hayes Valley if you haven't been there. They have amazing, amazing charcuterie. It's our favorite, number one. They also have a location in Napa where we live. And this is just deviled eggs, but you can see fat piled on top of them. This is a wine tasting that we did for a customer. And just to point out to you that there are no crackers up here. So what we would do is we just add charcuterie, lots of fat, cheese, and then nuts, right? And the nuts and the cheese and things are eaten with a spoon or a knife. You know, there's just no crackers involved, and then copious amounts of wine. I pulled this blood test from this wine tasting. This is pretty typical of what a wine tasting looks like for us. And I pulled this blood test at that table just to show my friends that this kind of copious wine consumption of keto wines has no impact on your blood testing. And I'm going to talk about testing in a moment. What is ketosis? I'm not going to have a science lesson here for you today, but I'll run through a couple of slides just so you understand. Ketosis is a metabolic state where you have nutritionally programmed your body to deplete it of glucose, available glucose, and in response, your liver will convert into ketone bodies. And in the blood, and we'll talk about that in a moment, in the blood that becomes evident in the measurement of beta-hydroxybutyrate, which is the result of ketone bodies in your blood, and that's what's measurable, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Here's why you want to be ketotic. You can store about 2,000 calories of glucose, about a teaspoon and a half at any given time, 1 to 2 teaspoons. It's stored in your muscles, a little bit in your liver, and a little bit in your brain. You will deplete that glucose in 10 to 12 hours, and this is the reason that people get tired when they don't eat on a regular basis, is because they're running out of glucose. And your brain uses about 40% of all of your energy. So your brain's like this super high-powered energy monster, right? So when you don't have availability of glucose, what happens next is your brain just kind of shuts down. This is when you get tired and cranky and, you know, and become hangry, right, so to speak. So because your brain is shutting down, because your brain's not trained yet to really tap into ketones as an alternative energy source. So this is what happens when people get the keto flu, typically in the first week of conversion. The first 7 to 10 days can be uncomfortable, depending upon what kind of condition you're in, because you get very tired and cranky when you're converting over to burning from sugar to ketones. You can live 70 to 80 days without eating. Absent ketones, you would die in about 7 days. Of course, you must have water. We evolved to be in a state of ketosis for survival. This is really a super important point, one of the most important things to understand about ketosis. We're going to look at this a little bit on the next slide, but sapiens have been walking around for about 2.5 million years. And the agricultural revolution, when we started farming and harvesting grains, happened about 10,000 years ago. The cognitive revolution was about 30,000 years ago. And one of the kind of crazy facts that we don't think about, science is only 500 years old, right? So For most of our existence, walking around, we did not have steady food supplies. And for most of that time, we were living in and out of states of starvation. Or, in other words, we were in ketosis. Because when you don't eat anything at all, of course, you're not eating any carbohydrate, and the primary food at that time anyway was leafy greens and some tubulars and vegetables and meats and high-fat diet. So people were already living in ketosis. Now, a friend that I met tonight asked me, well, aren't you tired? I mean, don't you haven't eaten since yesterday? I mean, where do you get your energy source? My energy source is constant. It's from my own body fat. And in fact, when you don't eat and you're in a state of ketosis, and we'll talk about this in a moment, when you don't eat and you're in a state of ketosis, you actually have higher energy, more mental clarity, and a much higher focus. How many people are ketogenic in here? I saw raise their hands. Okay. So I think you all can understand and identify with the brain buzz that I speak about. It's right at the top of your head. It's this super, super powerful brain buzz. And so you're actually, when you don't eat and you're on a ketogenic diet, you actually have higher mental acuity, and you have higher physical performance and higher energy. Now here's how we know, for those of you who are not ketogenic, here's how you can make common sense out of that. If for most of the evolutionary time while we didn't have access to regular food supplies, if in fact not eating made you weaker and more vulnerable instead of sharper and stronger, we wouldn't have survived as a species. So in fact, when we don't eat and we eat less, and on a ketogenic diet, when we reach a state of ketosis, we do it nutritionally. They were doing it because they didn't have access to regular food supply. And so this alternate energy source was evolved to help the species survive, to bring us today. What's happened in the last 100 years particularly, and most aggressively in the last 50 years, when the fraud on fat came out, is that, we've now fed ourselves poison and toxins. Same thing happened to wine. So training your body to use a cleaner, more efficient fuel source is what ketosis is. How do you enter ketosis? Fasting is the fastest way to get there, because obviously when you're fasting, you have zero carbohydrate, zero sugar, and the state of fasting will accelerate your entrance into ketosis. Restriction of sugars and carbohydrate, increased MCT oils. The most well-known one is called caprylic acid, or C8. It's also known as brain octane under the Bulletproof brand. And C8 bypasses your digestive system, it goes directly to your liver and converts almost instantly into ketone bodies. So the consumption of C8 or brain octane, caprylic acid, will also accelerate you into ketosis. Why does your body, here's a super important thing about why you have more energy and greater mental clarity, because your brain would rather burn ketones as energy source than glucose. Ketones also are a potent signaling molecule, so they have positive gene epigenetic expression by turning on beneficial processes within your body. And the two primary ones that I see that I think benefit most people the most is the anti-inflammatory pathway. So when someone becomes ketogenic, you can see it in their face. They lose this puffiness that the standard American diet brings. And then cellular autophagy, which is the healing and repair of your cells, and mitochondria, where you're shedding and recycling your old cells. And we're going to talk about mitochondria in just a second. In fact, there are two books that are about to hit the New York Times bestseller list. One, Dave Asprey's new book, which is coming out next week, called Headstrong, is all about mitochondria. And then Dr. Joseph Mercola, many of you probably know, is a U.S. health leader, has 3 million unique visits to his website every month. He's also releasing a book soon on mitochondria. So ketones produce a more effective fuel source, less wasted energy, less energy for autophagy. Ketones, and this is really important point, ketones access the brain-blood barrier much more efficiently than glucose. This is the reason we're seeing the ketosis and the ketogenic diet is being very successful in treating Alzheimer's and other cognitive degenerative diseases. A tremendous amount of success in this. And also very high fat and particularly high coconut oil diets are shown to be very effective in helping with the symptoms of Alzheimer's. But uniquely, glucose requires carrier proteins to pass through the brain-blood barrier. Ketones are water soluble, allowing them to pass much more efficiently through the barrier and feed your brain with much more efficient energy. The result of that, as I talked about, is more focus, higher energy, increased memory. I think I would estimate I had a 300% increase in memory when I became fat adaptive ketogenic. And overall higher cognitive function, which is really super important, because one of the things I'm looking at, and we'll talk about this in a moment, one of the reasons I'm on a strict ketogenic diet, like some of you are not as strict as I am probably, because I'm using it with an anti-aging focus as I'm nearly approaching 60. And so I want to keep my aging process down as slow as possible. So I can have more fun longer. What is mitochondria? Powerhouses of the cell, what do? Energy production, detox, cellular communication, cell growth, death, and replication. What happens when you upgrade your mitochondria through ketosis? We reviewed most of this, but cognitive performance, better energy, stress response, regulation of sleep hormones, detoxification, anti-inflammatory, improved immune response, genetic expression increase, we talked about that, cellular cleansing, and autophagy. Most mitochondria are found in your heart, brain, eyes, and liver, so really important functions. History, safety, and research. Human testing for most of the 2.5 million years we've been walking around. It's a natural state. Ketosis is an evolved state. It's very natural. Formally developed, the ketogenic diet was developed in 1921 as a treatment for epilepsy in children, because what they instantly noticed was that children stopped having epileptic seizures when they were in a fasted state. And so the ketogenic diet was developed to mimic the brain's response to a fasted state. That's the reason it's so high in fat. It's now being studied extensively, and there are hundreds and hundreds of studies showing that it's effective in treating and preventing cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and a whole bunch of other stuff. The extensive studies, and most of the funding so far for ketogenic research has actually come from the Department of Defense, who have been in studies for about a decade on enhanced performance for special forces. If you're reading any kind of health press, you're also seeing that it's commonly practiced in professional sports for optimized performance. Why am I ketogenic? Well, I'm afraid I'm a self-professed hedonist. I love feeling great and living my best life. I love the pursuit of pleasures, and I like being high, both off of wine and bulletproof coffee and off of ketosis. So for those of you who have been in ketosis for any period of time, you know the high that I'm talking about, because everybody experiences it. I started ketogenic diet for the same reason most people do, and that's to break through a weight loss plateau. I thought I was just trying to lose the last 5 pounds. As it turned out, I lost 20, not knowing that I really needed to do that, and now my weight's been kind of constant for a very long time. Increased access to flow state. Everybody knows what flow state is, I assume? Well, I'm really into flow state. Does everybody know what flow state is? No. Okay, so flow state, oh wow. Biohackers, flow state. So flow state is when, you sit down and you're doing a creative project and you kind of get lost in time, or you're doing a work project and you get lost in that time where this kind of window just kind of compresses and an hour goes by and you put out this really cool work. It typically happens when you're under a deadline, because this is one of the things that triggers a flow state, is the stress of a deadline, and it just parks you down in. And so one of my objectives in life is to increase that flow state for productivity and for higher creative output. Does everybody know the feeling I'm talking about when you get down and you're down in? That's flow. Brain buzz, constant, steady, high energy, never hungry. Ketones suppress hunger, so even though I eat once a day, I'm not the least bit hungry right now. And for people who are on a twice a day feeding, who eat, which is how most people do intermittent fasting, is they do what's called the lean gains method. That's eating twice a day in a 6-hour window, so it looks like this. They don't eat breakfast. They eat lunch at 1, and they eat again by 7 o'clock in the evening. So it's 2 meals inside of the 6-hour window. It's a super easy protocol. The 24-hour protocol, like what I do, if you're not fat adaptive ketogenic, it'd be quite painful, because you would be hungry and you'd be going through energy spikes. I don't have those because I'm just absent any real glucose burning. Improved memory, higher protective, anti-aging, prevented, stabilized my brain chemicals. This is another huge thing. So I've always had a tendency at times to kind of have dark days, not really what I call depression or clinical depression, but just kind of where I just wasn't feeling, physically there was nothing wrong with me, but I just wasn't feeling top of the game mentally. And that's really, those are neurochemicals, and just I suffered from slight imbalance of some kind. It's quite common, many people do. All of that went away in stabilizing these neurochemicals. Ketogenic diet protocols, this is what I talked about earlier. I am on a 4-to-1, which is a classic therapeutic. Most people are not that extreme. Modified is, these are ratios between fat and carbohydrate and protein. So the first number is the fat, second number is carbohydrate and protein. So so you can see it ranges from 4.1 to 1.1. I'm in the 4.1. I would say my staff is probably between 2.1 and 3.1. And then there's the cyclical ketogenic diet, which is a typical low-carb diet, right? So you're in and out of ketosis. I find that quite painful, but people do it all the time. I find it painful because you experience energy swings, so I'll talk about that in a second. Let's bust through testing protocols. If you're going to experiment with a ketogenic diet, I highly recommend that you do testing. There are 2 methods for testing. One is the common known pea strip. It's available at your local pharmacy. They're super cheap. You can get a whole box of 100 for like $10 or something, right? So they're super cheap. They work in the beginning. Once you reach fat adaptation, they're not accurate. But for the first couple of months, they will tell you whether or not you're in ketosis, and they're super cheap. Now, we are in this business, and we have a bunch of meters, and we sometimes do blood testing at my office 4 or 5 times a day. It is expensive to do blood testing. This is actually during an extended fast for me, where I was 7.3 millimolars, and I'll tell you what that means in a minute. But this is measuring the beta-hydroxybutyrate in my blood. This takes 10 seconds to pull this measurement. It's a finger prick. The meter's $25. The testing strips are about $2 each. So they're really kind of prohibitively expensive to use on a regular basis. We're in the process now of working with a company in Asia to try to bring the cost of those strips down to 99 cents, which is about the lowest we think we can get them. We've not been able to achieve that yet, but we're in the process of it. But presently, online, you can buy them for $2 to $3 each. So you would agree that's pretty expensive. But this is an exact measurement of your ketotic state. And the reason, if you become fanatical, the reason to do blood testing is because what I'm looking for is to understand the relationship. If you'll go to the next slide, what I'm looking for is to understand the relationship between my ketotic state and how I feel, right? So this is blood ketones, which are beta-hydroxybutyrate measured in millimolars. And this is, as you might remember from the last slide, I was at 7.3 during an extended fast. So that's starvation ketosis. You won't get there if you're eating. And then the optimal zone for me, I feel my best at about 2.4 to 3.2. And I would guess right now, I'm probably around 3.2. I would just guess. I tested earlier today and I was at 2.0, and that was 4 or 5 hours ago. And since I've been in a fasted state, you can expect that has increased substantially. So anyway, for me, this is kind of the optimal zone, and it seems to be the optimal zone for most people. If I get too high, has anybody ever experienced super high ketones where you get myopic or kind of tunnel vision, or where your concentration levels, yes, I know, where your concentration levels become so intense that, for me, that's just not comfortable, because then you can really get deep down into the wormhole in terms of flow state, right? And so it doesn't really work. Some thoughts on starting. I'm going to bust through all this so we can get cleaned up here pretty quick. Support's helpful, buddy up. Clean out your kitchen. Get rid of all condiments. Anything that's going to be a temptation to you that's off program. Because if I come in drunk, which happens, because I'm in the wine business, whatever's in the kitchen, I'm going to eat this shit. Right? I mean, it's just going to happen. Right? So it's just not there. If it's not there, I can't eat it. Right? So because, sometimes we become vulnerable and I just don't want to be there. Phase in, adjusting to higher. Social situations can be tricky. Be prepared to be poked by your friends. The work break room is a dangerous place, including this place here. There's just constant temptations everywhere. Fortunately, because we all work together and we're all ketogenic, we are not tempted by, because we don't have anything in our workroom except bulletproof coffee, butter, and fat, right? So that's the only thing there is to eat at my office. There's going to be a period of adjustment, keto flu. Here's another big thing. There are many years of your social conditions and emotional narratives around eating. So like when I stopped eating twice a day and went to a once a day, which happened about 6 months ago, and I'll never go back. I mean, I feel so phenomenal. It's been such a great experience. I'll never go back. When I went to eating just once a day, what happened to me was there was this period of adjustment where I was emotionally missing lunch, which was a social environment, right? That was a social narrative. It wasn't that I was hungry. It's just that I kind of want to hang out with my friends. But the good news is, you add a couple hours of productivity to your day in addition to higher energy. Do some basic research on the glycemic index. This will tell you which foods will result in higher rise in blood glucose. It's just interesting to know that. It helps you make decisions on food if you want to keep your blood glucose down. Initially, you'll probably experience a temporary drop in physical performance, like at the gym or in endurance. It'll last for 1 to 2 weeks. But then when you come back, as your body adjusts to burning fat, you'll be stronger than ever. You'll set personal best records all over the place. When you fall off, shit happens. Just reset the next day. The next day is the beginning of the rest of your life. Forget about it. I think, in the beginning, and this is a Tim Ferriss idea, I did it in the very beginning. Some people find it easier to have a set day weekly for cheating. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to be super disciplined all week, but on Saturday I'm going to blow it the fuck out and do whatever I want. Right? I'm going to have chocolate cake and then just blow it out. And I think to a certain degree, initially, I'll tell you why I think it's a bad idea is because it causes you these kind of swings. But emotionally, I found it to be in the very, very beginning when the 4-Hour Body came out and I got committed to that, which was pre-ketosis. I found being able to go to that favorite restaurant on Saturday for lunch with my bros and just eat the shit out of anything was somehow emotionally satisfying, so you might find that useful. You'll notice in a few days, if you're compliant, that you're not hungry. The deeper you get into ketosis, the less you want to eat. In fact, when you're on a 2-day meal intermittent fast, which is the lean gains method I talked about earlier, one of the things that anybody I think will tell you who's done this is you'll oftentimes forget to eat lunch, right? Because you're just not hungry, so you just forget about it, right? And so you don't eat usually until late in the day, even if you eat twice a day, because you're not hungry, and you're in flow state, and you just forget to eat. This is a very common thing. Has anybody experienced that who's ketogenic? The deeper you get, the less you'll want to eat. Stay hydrated. It's hard. I never drink enough water. Simplify, think less. No need to overanalyze this. Let's go to the next slide. Bust through. I'm going to give you a quick guide on a 3-cycle process we have for taking people into ketosis. So it's real simple. Eat as much as you want, whenever you want, of everything else except this. Right? So beware that sugar's in everything. Fat, cheese, and heavy cream is fine. No sugar, flour, corn, rice, potatoes, or milk. No vegetables grown below ground. No artificial sweeteners. No juices, no fruit. Stay whole, no processed foods. Check for sugar in everything. It's particularly restaurant salad dressings is filled with sugar. Increase your fat intake. You'll enter nutritional ketosis in 2 to 3 days, and most of your challenge will be over.
But it's important to remember, eat as much as you want, as often as you want. If you want to eat 10 times a day, eat 10 times a day, just don't eat any of this, right? So what you're going to be eating most of is bacon and steak and kind of high-fat proteins. You're going to find it very satisfying, super easy to do, right? You'll still enter ketosis. Let's go to the next slide. In the second phase, we're going to maintain the phase 1 guidelines, so still not eating any of the white devils. But we're going to start building out some thought, not overanalyzation, but some thought about micronutrient balances. Again, no need to overthink this, but this gives you kind of a concept of how little carbohydrate is actually contained in vegetables. I mean, it's not even measurable, right? So you can eat the shit out of this stuff and never get close to 20 grams. You can't eat enough vegetables to get, I probably eat 10 or 12, 15 grams most days of carbohydrate. Moderate protein, and what I like to say is that's about the size of your palm or a card deck. That's a moderate serving of protein. There's formulas that I could give you, but it doesn't matter if it's moderate or fine. Again, don't overanalyze it. Thoughtful increase in high quality fats, and this is really important. High quality fats are extra virgin, and the reason high quality fats are super important, like extra virgin olive oil, my preferred brand is called Nutiva. It's widely available at Whole Foods and everywhere. The reason high quality fats are super important is because fat that is not high quality tastes like shit, right? Good quality butter is delicious, and eat it with a spoon, right? Olive oil, drink it right out of the bottle if it's high quality. Same thing for coconut oil, but it's got to be high quality. And you're not going to follow a program, a nutritional program that isn't fun and pleasurable. This is not about deprivation. This is about optimization. That's really important. The ketogenic diet is not about deprivation. It's about optimizing your state of metabolic being. Begin intermittent fasting. I would use the method that I spoke of earlier. Just skip breakfast, eat lunch, and then eat again within a 6-hour window. At that second meal, I'd recommend 1 to 2 bottles of Dry Farm's wine with that. So I drink 1 to 2 bottles every night, and it works well for me. I've explained to you how it works. You can take a photograph of the screen, or you can email me, Todd at dryfarmwines.com, and I'll send you this presentation. I often have bulletproof coffee following my workout around 11. This is known as a fatted fast. I don't have it every day, particularly if I'm traveling, but we do have it in my office, and most days I'll consume it. Phase 3, if you want to get on in hardcore, extend your fasting out to 1 day. That'll take you about a week to adjust to, particularly mentally. Fasting notes, I find fasting is mentally clarifying. Food sedates me to a degree and sedates you. So when you have a big meal, you're not energized. You're in fact sedated. And this is the reason we have an overeating epidemic, because most of us, or most of America, maybe not for all the biohackers, we're under such high stress, and we live in this high stress environment, and people use food as their drug. I'm using food as my drug too, but just in a different way. Right? And so people are using food as to for a moment stop that mind, to eating like watching television is something that distracts them away from their trauma of thinking. Huge increase in productivity, never hungry. Let's go to the next slide. Be prepared to be poked, keep it light. I was recently served this dessert at a dinner party. Right, so this is what, so while everybody else had, so this was actually served directly to me by the host. That's some heavy whipping cream, blueberries, and a stick of butter. So people will, I mean, when you do this, I mean, you're going to be out on the cutting edge. You're going to be forward leaning, and for many biohackers already understand that. For us, because my entire life exists primarily around my business and my colleagues, and since we're all in the same program, I don't, it's not strange to us. In fact, just the opposite would be strange. Let's move on. Real quickly, the vital, this is an important slide. We just have a few more, so hang in. I know it's hot in here. This is why most people fail conversion, is they don't become fat adaptive. And this is when you're rolling in and out of cyclical ketogenic. So you're not really fat adapted, and your body's looking for glucose, and it doesn't know if it's going to find glucose or ketones, and so you're up and down, right? You're going to experience energy swings until you fat adapt. Cheating will drive this and extend the adaptation process. Your brain's lazy. It's going to look for the easiest source of energy. And the easiest source is going to be looking for that glucose that it's accustomed to finding. It's not the source it prefers, it's the easiest source to find. Your brain will take the easiest path to fuel. It takes 6 to 8 weeks to adapt. Once you're fat adapted, it's easy to stay in ketosis even with some cheats. I had French fries last night. I don't have many, but it's just one of the things I really like. I can only have a few, and I had no impact on my ketosis today, but they're just kind of one of those things I like, but they're not historically permitted on a ketogenic diet. Challenging side effects you might experience from ketogenic: social issues, criticism, people tell you it's dangerous. Muscle cramping in your legs, you supplement with potassium and magnesium and extra sodium. This is a very common side effect. What the fuck? I had kidney stones twice. And I was like birthing a rhinoceros. Right? First time I went to the hospital, I was up all night, didn't know what was, I thought I was going to die. It's not conclusive and clear that the ketogenic diet either promotes or releases what might already be there. We're not really sure, but it's not an uncommon. It affects a handful of percentage, 10 to 20% of people get kidney stones from this. I had them twice early on. It was very unpleasant. Women say it's worse than childbirth. I don't know. It's rough. Extended flow state. Here's a typical day for me. Up to 5:36, cup of hot tea, my whole kind of practice, my fitness. I go to the office at 10 o'clock where we, most days have a bulletproof coffee, group meditation. We have a whole process in my office of personal development that lasts an hour, and then we open at 11 a.m. for business. Then I don't eat again until dinner, usually around 6 o'clock. It's my only meal of the day. My meals are typically protein and vegetables, fat, fat, fat. You can see the rest. If I'm on the fly, and I'm going to cover this in just a moment in restaurants, if I'm on the fly, my go-to is bunless cheeseburger. I love cheeseburgers, lots of mayo. I do eat French fries a couple of times a week, not very much of them with no impact to me. I have no real interest or temptation in cheating unless I'm drunk and it's 2 a.m. I've already talked about what happens there. Professional hazard, I taste about 50 wines a week. I drink 1 to 1.5, sometimes 2 bottles a night. I'm in bed around 11. Unless I pass out before. Hacks, number one hack to get there is fasting. Nut butters will help you in your transition because they're high in fat and they're tasty. 90 to 100% pure chocolate. If you take a shot of extra virgin olive oil or a tablespoon of coconut oil, I guarantee you it will cure any craving you have within minutes. Right? Fat just fills you up quickly. Fat cures everything. If you're going to eat fruit, be wise. Blueberries are the number one choice. I don't eat any kind of fruit at any kind at any time. But berries are okay. Most important hack, self-forgiveness. Most important hack of your life. If you fuck up, move on. Tomorrow's a fresh beginning, the first day of the rest of your life. Here's restaurants and eating out. This is my go-to choice. I'll throw a fried egg and bacon on this. So I will not have the ketchup. I pulled this off the internet today, so it's not an actual food photograph from me. But what I did think it really illustrated was the concept of the lettuce wrap. And like In-N-Out does a protein burger and a lettuce wrap. This is more typical of the way we eat out. This is roasted salmon at a restaurant in our neighborhood, topped with a big piece of butter swimming in olive oil. So fish and oils and fats are delicious. Olive oil and great butter are good together. This is how our restaurant serves us, so they bring this out with every meal because they know, we eat there all the time, they know we're going to consume a whole bunch of fat. This is again a steak with the greens, butter. This is just how we eat. This is roasted red peppers. Red peppers contain more vitamin C than an orange. So they're super healthy for you. They're low glycemic and they're swimming in fat. For travel, this, as I mentioned earlier, Vital Choice is our seafood company of choice. They have the cleanest, safest seafood of anybody we have encountered. Almonds are a good choice, or you can just fast it out. So if you're traveling, you can just skip eating until you get somewhere where you can eat. Moving to the next slide, biohacking. I'm just going to give you 3 quick biohacks this is the last 3 slides. I'll give you 3 quick biohacks that will change your life. The most underrated biohack of all time and the most important biohack of all time. So first of all, 3 quick biohacks. Simplify everything. Thinking is the primary distraction to our happiness in life, the trauma of thought. So simplify everything, just think less. 1 quick bio, I adapted, now I'm pretty extreme, mind you. I adapted a uniform a couple of years ago, And every time you see me, or no matter where you see me, you'll see that I'm wearing exactly the same thing. I'm like 15 of these, 20 of these t-shirts, and I wear exactly the same thing every day, so I never have to consider, particularly as much as I travel. And because I also do cold thermogenesis, I particularly enjoy this in the winter and cold places because, you know, I wear shorts and a t-shirt every day of the year, no matter where I am. Another really interesting one is this is super powerful. I can't begin to tell you how powerful this is if you practice it or haven't practiced. Make your bed the first thing you do in the morning because it gives you a quick, easy win and a sense of order. It's super powerful. And has anybody in here practice this? Oh, shit! All right, well then I'm not telling this crowd much, but yeah, awesome. All right. Next up, the most underrated biohack, breath fitness. I'm sure most of you know who Wim Hof is. I've trained with Wim Hof twice. We did his video series before that. He's a character. If you've ever heard him do a podcast or met him, I know you met him because you were at the same training I was at. If the kite is the mind, the breath is the wind, right? So your breath and your control and your awareness of breath has a super, super impact on how you think. The most important biohack of all time, and I mentioned earlier, meditation. We think too much. Meditation empowers abundance. And I know you've heard tons of podcasts about this. I know it's hard because most of you fail because you can't stop thinking. That's the reason they call it practice, right? So you need a daily, regular practice if you intend to achieve success in meditation. In parting, I just want to say, as we think, so we become. Love more, be more compassionate, be more vulnerable. We're just all walking each other home. All right, so thanks for having me. And I know it's a little warm, but I'm also happy to take any questions on wine, the ketogenic diet, any questions that you have about anything I've talked about, or if you want to challenge me for intellectual curiosities, I'll take that too. Yes, sir.
So you rarely have heavy cream, or you try to avoid it?
I don't eat it, but that's just a personal preference. I don't find that dairy makes me feel great, but it's permitted because it's so high in fat. Milk is not because it's high in sugar. Heavy cream is, and a lot of people like it, particularly with like blueberries and cream, or a lot of people like it in coffee. It's just not, I just don't eat it,
Okay.
but it's completely permitted. Next. Yes, sir.
When you were talking about the way that you test your ketones, is there a specific reason why you choose not to use like the breath test, like from the ketonics?
I can only tell you my personal experience with it. So I met with the founder. I experimented with the product. I wasn't comfortable with it. I couldn't get it to give me accurate readings, and he was there administering it. And this is just my personal experience. I know a lot of people use it. I think it's great for children, or where people are sensitive to finger pricking. The finger pricking has no issue to me. As I mentioned, the primary downfall to blood testing, as you're aware, is the cost of it. But we pay for it because it's kind of the business we're in. But before we were doing that, I thought, shit, this is fucking painful. I mean, the cost of it, right? You can order a couple $100 worth of these things at a time, and then you're running out, and then you know what? I'm sure you've experienced all of this.
Yeah. At what point in your business career did you adopt the workflow at your organization that you mentioned on the
I appreciate you asking that. It's a great question. With this business.
Yeah.
Because I didn't awaken until I mentioned I had this dramatic failure in my previous business. And from that, I came to practice meditation and have an awakening and an awareness for life. And from that awareness, as we started building our team, we developed a very unorthodox interview process. Our interview lasts 3 days. We have a very specific process for how we locate people. We hire typically biohackers who are already in our lifestyle. And then daily, we begin every day in my office with meditation in a dark room. Then we do open gratefulness therapy with one another, and open visualization, journaling, and we just have a kind of an hour-long personal development process. But then at the end of this hour, what my staff would tell you is that we're all calm but energized, And we've, it's just a process. Meditation is so powerful, and visualization. And I will tell you, for us, our relationship between the channels of the universe and the visualizations that we practice, everything we visualize comes to us at some point. I mean, it's pretty, so we have a pretty unorthodox and crazy, and the fact that we don't open until 11 for business, most people are trying to get their people in at 8 or 8:30. We pay for everybody's gym membership. I'd rather have them practicing a personal morning ritual than come into the office and stressing themselves out there to get virtually nothing done anyway.
Did you go to a resource in terms of when you wanted to construct that? Is there anyone out there who's a leader in this?
No, we've done a Medium post on it.
Yeah.
No, we weren't inspired by anybody other than our experience with the abundance of meditation and visualization. Our business grew 100x last year because of it. And so I would tell you there's no replacement. My staff would tell you that it's magical. And we live this magic every single day. And it empowers abundance for us beyond belief. And it's not the abundance that we have is all tied to this meditation. Other question? Yes.
Now, somebody's looking to have hypertrophy and strength grown through their gym workouts. Is this sort of diet still applicable?
There's a ton of research out there showing that ketogenic is muscle sparing and also drives muscle growth. Ton of research. The primary person to look up, if you want to look at that research, there are two researchers, Dr. Jeff Bolick from the University of Connecticut, and Dr. Jacob Ryan, Jacob Wilson. I'm sorry, Dr. Jacob Wilson, who has a performance lab, ketogenic performance lab in Florida.
So after that, there's also Wolverine diet, which is similar to what you mentioned.
The Wolverine diet?
Wolverine diet.
I'm not familiar with
It's
it.
like Hugh Jackman diet when he prepares for the movies.
Oh, cool.
So it's like a 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. fast.
Right.
And then he does exercise in the morning in the fasting state, he gets growth hormone going, and etc.
It's been very effective for me. Yes, ma'am.
Hey Todd, so I've had incredible results on ketogenic diet, and then separately, like on a cognitive performance level, and then separately on a spiritual level through like a raw diet. What are your thoughts, if any, on a plant-based ketogenic diet?
Oh, I mean, it's totally doable. I personally feel better when I eat primarily plant food. I just have an indulgent weakness for proteins and fatty fish and ribeyes, and that's just a personal indulgence, but I feel better actually on plant food. Plant food, so being on a plant-based diet and ketogenic is completely achievable. You just have to increase your fats and be sure that your carbohydrates are above ground, so you're not eating potatoes, sweet potatoes, beets, turnips, anything grown below ground. Carrots are okay because, I mean, even though they're grown below ground, typically you don't eat much carrot. It's typically just a garnishment.
Todd, two-part question. Have you been checking your microbiome, especially your gut microbiome, after getting to this diet? And that's the first part. The second part is, do you take any resistant or reactive, non-reactive starch?
Resistant starch.
Resistant starch.
The answer to both questions is no.
Okay. Well, why have you not gotten your microbiome?
This is an excellent question. I'll do that.
For myself, I've noticed a drop in a lot of diversity of my own gut microbiome after I switched to this diet because there's no starch, or very little starch, for the bacteria to eat as a fuel source.
You need dietary fiber. Dietary fiber is consumable by your biome, even if you can consume it.
In addition to, and I hate to put this plug in, but natural wines are super high in bacteria because they've not been sterilized with sulfur dioxide. In fact, Dr. David Perlmutter is about to endorse us here in a couple of weeks, and we're going to do a publishing on showing higher levels of proactive microbiome in natural wines as opposed to sterilized commercial wines. So that's coming up. So drink natural wine whether you buy it from me or not.
Excuse me, so health-related issue about the meat, amount of meat in this diet. Yeah, I'm full fat, but
I love the French.
yeah.
So romantic.
It's about the amount of meat if you follow like most of your recipes. So it's already even kind of confirmed by conventional medicine that big amount of protein results in high rate of cancer. So even doctors have admitted this. So that's why alkaline diets and also like the stream, So what to do? Like it's very hard to follow plant and fat. So maybe.
Well, I mean, in most of those photographs, you saw you saw a moderate amount of protein, surrounded by a lot of vegetables. So, yes, studies exist in that. We only eat grass-fed. We only eat grass-fed beef. I don't usually eat beef more than once or twice a week. Again, I feel better on a plant-based diet. I just am somewhat self-indulgent, so I eat it when I want it. But we also know that the ketogenic diet, that most cancers we now know are not genetic, but they're in fact metabolic, and that cancers feed off of glucose. And so when you restrict your glucose, you're actually starving these precancerous diets, and there's a lot of fasting evidence showing that fasting is also creating accelerated autophagy on these precancerous diet. We all have precancerous cells. The question is whether they become malignant.
How about alkaline and acidic balance? Is it possible to make alkaline inside the body?
I'm not an expert on alkaline diets. I don't know. Some things I just don't know. If I don't know, I tell you, I just don't fucking know. Yeah.
I can speak to the alkaline element. So basically, the higher your ketosis level, the more acidic your blood, but your body's self-regulating. So if it's starvation, ketosis, or whatever, you won't get into unhealthy levels. Some people experience, if they're diabetic, they might experience ketoacidosis.
For a type 1 diabetic.
Yeah, when they go up to like 20 or
Would they be
much
dead?
higher level. And there the problem is that your blood is too acidic and
Yeah. So what he's speaking about is a condition known as ketoacidosis. This is a condition that affects only type 1 diabetics, and this is oftentimes what people say is dangerous. The ketogenic diet can kill you. Well, what they're talking about is they're referring to, and even doctors say this, they're referring to ketoacidosis, which is a very specific response to having this high acid and high ketones in your blood and high sugar all at the same time. And that's when your blood ketone levels will get up to 10 or 20, and type 1 diabetic can die.
Ketoacidosis is not just a risk for type 1 diabetics. In fact, many of the Arctic expeditions ended because the people in the expedition were having to eat husky meat, which is very high in ketones and vitamin A, and have resulting problems from it. So it's not just a risk. So it's unlikely that you're going to get it from your ketosis diet, but it's not just a problem for type 1 diabetics.
Are you talking about the Arctic study with the two doctors that spent time with the...
No, the early Arctic expeditions, actually.
Okay, all right. Can't debate with you on it, don't know. Commonly published in ketogenic literature and in the ketogenic movement is that I'm going to look into it, but it's commonly published by the world's leading experts that this is associated with type 1 diabetics. But again, I'm going to look into it. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Yes, sir.
Can you recommend a fasting protocol to quickly get into ketosis?
Yeah, I would do the lean gains method, so which is twice a day.
Okay,
Because until you become fat adaptive ketogenic, the once a day feeding is going to be too uncomfortable.
Do you have any thoughts on just like water fasting for multiple days?
Oh, here's what we practice most often, and I recommend. We usually have about a cup of bone broth at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which is just getting us essential minerals and some fat, and you're basically remaining in a fat. It's a very common fasting protocol that just makes it more comfortable, So, but you can do water only. The longer you do a fast, the quicker you'll get into ketosis. You'll be in ketosis in 2 days if you do a 2-day fast.
Two more questions.
Yeah. You had a question.
I have a 2-part question. I've been a year and a half in ketosis. I cheated recently on my birthday and had some pasta. I got really sick, so I'm wondering, how do you cheat and and not get sick. And then also my partner is in ketosis for 5 months now, and he has a huge sweet tooth. So I try to feed him blueberries, but he's not having it. He wants more. So I'm wondering what your take is on stevia, fake sugars, things like that.
It's a great question. You might consider getting a new boyfriend. But that being said, so to answer your question on cheating in the first place, the only thing I cheat on is this kind of crazy shit I do in the middle of the night, which is just, I'm going to sleep, go to bed, and sleep it off. I'm not going to feel too bad. It's going to make me feel bad. I'm going to go to sleep. So I don't eat pasta or any kind of flour. I just don't eat it. It makes me sick. I would go into a coma. If I ate a plate of pasta, I would just literally go into a coma. I'd have to lay down. In fact, the last time I did it, which is like 4 years ago, I literally had to go back to my hotel room and lay down.
I threw up.
Right. This is horrible. To your second question on your boyfriend. Here's my point of view, and this is not shared by many leading diet authors, but this is my point of view. I don't recommend that people use artificial sweeteners or eat them of any kind, and I don't care what their origination is, whether they're plant-based or chemical or whatever. Here's why. Until we break our addiction to the taste of things that are sweet, and that's both a physical and an emotional addiction. And so I find that replacing sugar with something else that tastes sweet is only going to extend that addiction. Here's where the problem comes in at, is because when you continue to have that addiction and the need to taste and want to eat something sweet, then you end up in this place where you can't resist yourself, right? And you're in the office break room eating cake, or you're at a dinner party eating X, Y, or Z, or I'm just going to have this off of the menu tonight in the restaurant, or the apple cobbler, or whatever. I don't have an interest in, it never occurs to me to eat any of those things because I'm not adapted to that sweet taste. I've broken my addiction. We'll take one more question. Oh, yeah.
We do these two, that's fine.
Let's just do these two over here, and we'll be done. I'll stay here all night for you. Go ahead.
So I'm ketosis and I do 2 meals a day, and I'm wondering, when you go down to 1 meal a day, what is the calorie intake that you should have? How many calories should you have?
I have no idea. Let me answer your question. When I say I have no idea, I don't do macronutrient counting. I don't do calorie counting. I don't care about calories. We also know that the only definitive evidence in life extension and anti-aging is in calorie restriction, right? So from my perspective, if I'm eating less calories, which I am, I would guess I eat somewhere between 1,000 and 1,400 calories a day. So I eat a very low-calorie diet. I don't give a shit, right? I'm not wasting away. Ketogenic is muscle sparing. I have lost a little bit of upper body size recently because I had a shoulder injury, but basically you're not going to shrink, right? So, and again, we know that the only definitive anti-aging life extension method known to man today is calorie restriction. So, which has only been proven in lab animals, by the way. It's not, nobody knows for humans. And there was one there.
So when you're going into ketosis, you start the fasting process, were you still exercising?
Absolutely, I exercise every single day.
For those 6 to 8 weeks?
Absolutely, every single day. I never miss exercise. It's rare. Sometimes on a travel day, so yes.
Are there any micronutrients that you're trying to supplement for, or you think you might be missing based on the diet?
I personally don't take supplements. Occasionally potassium or magnesium. But I used to take a shitload of them, like $400 a month or something, big handful, like horse choking. Right? I actually found I felt better when I stopped taking them. It's just when my body wasn't under stress to process all that. I just don't take supplements, so I'm not the guy to pitch supplements. And there was one right here, and this is it. Unless somebody's just so compelled, they have to stand up right now.
Why is it suspect to eat raw spinach, raw kale? Like, why do you recommend?
Are you looking at the bulletproof diet?
Yes.
and it's suspect for him.
This chart is telling me that.
I don't have, I'm not Mr. Bulletproof.
Oh, okay.
So,
Some people have trouble with the thyroid,
Hard on thyroid.
Oh, okay.
but
Yeah.
everybody has different tolerances. So some people it's fine, some people have trouble with it.
Gotcha.
And he
Yeah.
thinks he gets kidney stones.
they can contribute
A
to
lot of
kidney
your
stones.
food looked like it was cooked, so I didn't know if you were.
I
a fan of
don't.
that.
I eat a lot of salads, which weren't really featured there. So salad's a simple go-to. But did you have a question?
I did. So you only eat one meal a day. Do you consider wine a meal?
Do I consider wine a meal? Well, it's in conjunction with my meal. As you know, I don't drink during the daytime, and I don't recommend anybody else drinks during the daytime. Alcohol is toxic and poisonous, and we need to keep it at a minimum dose, except for those glorious exceptions that I've talked about.
Like a bottle of your wine.
Exactly. So, I say rock and roll. Let's drink some wine. I love you. Thank you for all your questions and being attentive. And I'm sorry it's hot, but thank you, George, and thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, that's the show. Go get some wine and go get some freebies from Bulletproof. Make sure these guys go back to Los Angeles empty-handed, because if they don't, I'm just going to take the stuff for myself. Bye, everybody.